Admiral Tay stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, and watched the stars pass by through the observation window. His fleet of 12 warships moved at maximum speed through hyperspace, racing toward the colony of New Jeju. 3 hours ago, he had received a distress signal. The message was short and filled with screaming. Then it went silent. His hands shook as he gripped the railing. His wife, Hannah, and his daughter, Yuna, lived on New Jeju. They had moved there 2 years ago because Hannah wanted to grow vegetables in real soil, not the artificial farms of Earth's orbital stations. Yuna had just turned 16. She had sent him a video message last week, showing him the flowers she had planted in their garden. The communications officer turned to him with fear in her eyes. "Admiral, we are receiving reports from other colonies. 15 human worlds are under attack. The Vren Empire has launched a coordinated strike." Tay felt his blood turn cold. The Vren were a warrior species who had argued against humanity joining the Galactic Council 30 years ago. They believed humans were too weak and occupied space that rightfully belonged to stronger species. But they had never acted on this hatred. Until now, how many ships? Tay asked. "Hundreds, sir. They are not attacking military targets. They are targeting civilian centers?" Tay closed his eyes. The Galactic Council had rules about warfare. You did not target civilians. You did not bomb cities. You fought military against military, and when one side lost enough ships, they surrendered. These were the civilized rules that humanity had followed carefully for 3 decades. The Vren were breaking every single one. "Time to New Jeju?" he asked. 47 minutes, Admiral." 47 minutes. Tay opened his eyes and stared at the swirling colors of hyperspace. He had never felt so helpless in his entire life. When the Eternal Dawn finally dropped out of hyperspace above New Jeju, Tay's worst fears became reality. The planet below was burning. Massive craters covered the surface where cities had once stood. The oceans were boiling. The atmosphere was filled with ash and smoke. "Life signs?" Tay whispered. The sensor officer did not answer. She just shook her head, tears running down her face. Tay walked slowly to his command chair and sat down. His legs would not hold him anymore. New Jeju had been home to 4.2 million people. Farmers, teachers, children, families. All of them were gone. Burned to ash in minutes by Vren weapons fired from orbit. Hannah was gone. His beautiful wife who laughed at his bad jokes and made him feel like the luckiest man alive. Yuna was gone. His little girl who was not so little anymore, who had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn nature, gone. All of them gone. "Admiral," the communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving a final transmission from the planet's surface. It was recorded just before the end." "Play it," Tay said. His voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. The bridge speakers crackled, and then Yuna's voice filled the room. She was crying, her words broken by sobs and the sound of explosions in the background. "Dad? Dad, where are you? They're bombing us. Everyone is running, but there's nowhere to go. Mom told me to hide, but the whole sky is on fire. Dad, please, we need help. Where are you? Why isn't anyone coming? Dad, I'm scared. I'm so scared. Please help us. Please." The transmission ended in static. Tay sat in silence. Every officer on the bridge was crying. Some had fallen to their knees. But Tay did not cry. Something inside him had broken, and where there had once been warmth and love, there was now only cold emptiness. "Get me a channel to Earth Command," he said. Over the next 3 days, the full horror became clear. 15 human colonies had been attacked. Some had been completely destroyed like New Jeju. Others had been partially burned, their survivors left to die slowly from radiation and poison. The total death count reached 89 million people, civilians, families, children, humanity, demanded action from the Galactic Council. They asked for military intervention against the Vren Empire. They asked for justice. The Council's response came in a formal statement. "We express our deepest concerns regarding the unfortunate events in human space. However, the Council cannot intervene in disputes between member species. We encourage both parties to seek a peaceful resolution. When pressed further, the Council suggested that humanity accept a peace treaty. The Vren demanded that humans give up the attacked colonies and retreat from that entire region of space. Several Council members thought this was a reasonable solution. Give them what they want, one alien ambassador said. It will prevent further bloodshed. Fleet Commander Jin watched this response from Earth's capital. She was the highest-ranking survivor of the human military command, as several admirals had died defending the colonies. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but those who knew her understood that her calmness was dangerous. They want us to reward the Vren for murdering our children, she said to her staff. They want us to teach the galaxy that killing humans has no consequences. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Millions of people filled the streets, holding pictures of dead loved ones, demanding justice, demanding revenge. For 30 years, Jin said, we followed their rules. We were polite. We were civilized. We sat in their council and voted on their resolutions and pretended that we were equals. And when someone burned our worlds, they told us to be reasonable. She turned to face her officers. Contact the council. Tell them I wish to address the full assembly. 2 days later, Fleet Commander Jin stood before the Galactic Council. Hundreds of alien ambassadors watched her from their seats in the great circular chamber. The Vren ambassador sat in the front row, looking bored. Jin did not shout. She did not cry. She spoke in a quiet, steady voice that somehow reached every corner of the room. 30 years ago, you taught us your civilized rules. We learned them. We followed them. We sent our children to your schools, and our diplomats to your halls, and our soldiers to your wars, always following your rules. She paused and looked directly at the Vren ambassador. You watched us follow those rules? You watched us limit our weapons. You watched us hold back our anger. You watched us die for your civilization. Her voice grew colder. 89 million of our people are dead. Children burned alive while calling for help that never came. And your response is to tell us to give the killers what they want. Jin straightened her uniform and spoke her final words clearly. Consider your civilized rules dead. They died with our children on New Jeju. They died with every family that burned while you debated procedure. Humanity is done being civilized. She let those words hang in the air for a moment before finishing, Earth sends its regards. Jin turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted in chaos, but she did not look back. There was nothing left to say. The time for words was over. 1 week later, every human ship in council space returned to Earth. A complete communication blackout followed. No transmissions entered or left human territory. The galaxy watched and waited, wondering what humanity would do next. They would not have to wait long. And when humanity's response finally came, the galaxy would learn a terrible truth. Humans had not forgotten how to be monsters. They had simply been waiting for someone to make it necessary. Deep beneath the mountains of old Korea, in bunkers that had not been opened for 100 years, Commander Sora walked through dusty corridors with a flashlight in her hand. The walls were lined with metal boxes, each one sealed and labeled with dates from before humanity joined the Galactic Council. Sora was a tall woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from years of combat training. She commanded Earth's Special Operations Forces, the soldiers who did the jobs that regular military could not do. She was very good at her work. She was also very angry. Her entire family had lived on New Jeju, her parents, her 2 brothers, her sister, and her sister's 3 children. All gone, turned to ash while she sat in a training facility on Mars, unable to do anything but watch the news reports. Now she was here, in the old bunkers, looking for weapons that humanity had locked away long ago. These were sealed when we joined the council, said the young soldier walking behind her. The council made us promise to never use them again. Sora stopped at a large metal door and entered a code into the panel beside it. The council also promised to protect member species from genocide. I guess we are all breaking promises today. The door opened with a hiss of old air. Inside the room were rows of containers holding weapons that humanity had used in its darker days. Chemical agents that could kill entire cities. Biological weapons that could wipe out populations. Bombs that could crack a planet's crust. All banned by Civilized Galactic Law.SOR picked up one of the containers and read the label. Nerve agent. Kills in 30 seconds. No cure. She placed it back on the shelf. We will need to make more. On the other side of Earth, in a research facility hidden under the ocean floor, Dr. Hyon was also opening sealed rooms. He was a small man with glasses and gentle hands, the kind of person who looked more like a librarian than a weapons scientist. Before the Council, he had been one of Earth's leading researchers in advanced warfare. After joining galactic civilization, he had been forced to destroy his work and spend 30 years studying peaceful applications of science. Now his government was asking him to remember everything he had forgotten. Gray Swarm, he said, looking at old blueprints on his computer screen. Self-replicating nanobots designed to dismantle enemy ships at the molecular level. The Council banned these because they could not be controlled once released. His assistant, a young woman named Rena, looked worried. Can they be controlled? Hyon smiled, but there was no happiness in it. No, that was always the point. You release them, and they eat everything until there is nothing left. The enemy cannot surrender. They cannot retreat. They can only die. He began typing on his keyboard. Start production immediately. In orbit above Earth, Captain Wu stood on the bridge of his frigate and watched supply ships moving between stations. The entire human fleet was being refitted for a new kind of war. Ships that had been designed for civilized combat were now being loaded with weapons that had no place in civilized combat. Wu was a young captain. Only 32 years old, with a quick smile and a reputation for caring about his crew. His younger brother had been a teacher on one of the attacked colonies. He had died trying to protect his students from the orbital bombardment. The children had died with him. Captain, his first officer said, new orders from Fleet Command. We are being assigned to harassment doctrine. Wu read the orders on his screen. Harassment doctrine was a tactic from Earth's ancient wars. The goal was simple: never let the enemy rest. Attack constantly, day and night, hitting small targets and then disappearing. Destroy their sleep. Destroy their morale. Make them afraid of every shadow. The Council would call this terrorism, Wu said. Yes, sir, his first officer agreed. Wu was quiet for a moment, thinking about his brother. Thinking about the children. Good, he finally said. Start training the crew? Fleet Commander Jin watched all of this from her office on Earth. Reports came in every hour about new weapons being built, new tactics being developed, new soldiers being trained. Humanity was preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Tay entered her office and sat down across from her desk. He had not slept in days. His eyes were empty and cold, like windows looking into a dark room. The Council has sent another message, Jin said. They are demanding we explain our military buildup. Ignore them, Tay replied. The Vren have also sent a message. They are giving us 30 days to surrender completely. They want us to give up all our colonies and accept Vren rule. If we refuse, they say they will glass Earth itself. Tay's expression did not change. Good, let them come. Jin studied him carefully. She had known Tay for 20 years. He had always been a calm and thoughtful officer, the kind of commander who found peaceful solutions whenever possible. That man was gone. The Vren had killed him along with his family. We will not be ready in 30 days, Jin said. Then we will make them wait. For the next 29 days, humanity said nothing. Complete silence. No communications, no responses to Council demands, no reactions to Vren threats. The galaxy grew nervous. What were the humans doing? What were they planning? Some Council members thought humanity had accepted defeat. Others thought they were preparing to surrender. The Vren were confident that their threat had worked. Humans were weak, they told each other. Humans would always be weak. On the 30th day, the Vren fleet assembled above Earth's border, ready to begin their final attack. The Vren admiral was a massive warrior named Grath, who had personally ordered the attack on New Jeju. He sat in his command chair and waited for human surrender. Instead, he received a transmission. The transmission contained no words. It was a recording from New Jeju's final moments. Screaming voices, explosions, children crying for their parents. And then, clearly audible above all the chaos, a young girl's voice. "Dad? Dad, where are you? Why isn't anyone coming?" The screaming continued for several minutes. Then it stopped, and there was only the sound of fire burning. Finally, text appeared on screen. "You wanted our attention. You have it. Civilized rules are over." Grath stared at the message, feeling something he had not felt in years. It took him a moment to recognize the emotion. It was fear, back on Earth. Commander Sora finished her final briefing with her Special Forces teams. They were the best soldiers humanity had ever trained, and they had spent the last month learning tactics that the galaxy called barbaric. "The Council thinks war has rules," Sora told them. "They think there are things you cannot do, lines you cannot cross. They are wrong. War has only one rule: win. Everything else is just comfort for people who have never lost everything." She looked at the faces of her soldiers. Many of them had lost family on the colonies. All of them had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back. "We are going to teach the Vren what humanity is capable of. We are going to make them afraid to sleep. We are going to make them afraid of the dark. And when they beg for mercy, we are going to remind them that they gave no mercy to our children." Sora picked up her weapon and headed for the door. "Earth remembers," she said. "Now let's make sure the galaxy never forgets." As she left, Dr. Hyan's first shipment of Grey Swarm was loaded onto waiting ships. Captain Wu's harassment squadrons powered up their engines. Admiral Tay stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. Yuna's last message saved on his personal device. Ready to play whenever he needed to. Remember why he was fighting. The galaxy had seen humanity as peaceful, civilized, harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first human ships appeared in 12 Ren systems at exactly the same moment. They came out of hyperspace without warning, their weapons already powered and their targets already selected. But they did not fire on military bases or defense stations. They fired on power plants, water treatment centers, food storage facilities, transportation hubs. Within 3 hours, 12 Ren colony worlds went dark. No electricity. No clean water. No way to move food from farms to cities. The colonies were not destroyed. They were crippled. Then the human ships broadcast a message to every colony. "You have 72 hours to evacuate these worlds. After that, we are not aiming for military targets anymore." "You taught us that lesson." The Vren High Command was stunned. This was not how war was fought. You attacked enemy fleets. You captured planets. You did not simply break things and leave. What were the humans doing? Admiral Grath sent his fastest ships to defend the colonies, but the human fleet was already gone by the time they arrived. The Vren found only darkness and fear. Millions of civilians were panicking, trying to find food and water, trying to escape on any ship they could find. "They are trying to scare us," Grath told his commanders. "This is desperation. Ignore their threats and hold the colonies." But holding the colonies was harder than Grath expected. 3 days later, Captain Wu's harassment squadrons arrived. Wu had divided his ships into groups of 3. Each group was assigned a Vren military station. They did not try to destroy the stations. They did not try to capture them. They simply attacked over and over at random times. The first attack came at midnight, station time. Wu's ships fired a volley of missiles, destroyed a few sensor arrays, and then jumped away before the Vren could respond. 2 hours later, they attacked again from a different direction. Then again 4 hours after that. Then again an hour later. The Vren defenders could not sleep. They could not eat. Every time they started to relax, alarms would scream and explosions would shake their station. After 3 days of constant attacks, the Vren crews were exhausted. They were making mistakes. They were seeing threats everywhere. "This is not warfare," one Vren commander complained in a report. "This is torture. Wu read the intercepted report and felt nothing. He thought about his brother, standing in front of his students as the bombs fell, trying to protect them with his own body. His brother had been tortured too. At least the Vren were still alive, while Wu kept the Vren military busy. Commander Sora launched her operation. Her team infiltrated a Vren core world, one of their oldest and most populated planets. They did not attack military targets. They did not plant bombs. Instead, they hacked into the planetary communication system and broadcast a single recording on every channel. Every screen, every speaker on the planet. It was the screaming from New Jeju. The recording played for 48 hours straight. In homes and schools and workplaces and hospitals, Vren citizens could not escape it. Children heard it while trying to sleep. Workers heard it while trying to do their jobs. The screams of human children dying filled every moment of every day. After 2 days, Sora stopped the broadcast. She left one final message, 89 million voices. We can play them all, one by one, until you remember what you did. The Vren High Command was furious. They called it psychological warfare. They called it against all laws of civilization. They demanded that the Galactic Council stop the humans immediately. The Council sent a strongly worded message to Earth. We condemn these barbaric tactics and demand that humanity cease all military operations against civilian populations. Admiralty sent a reply within the hour. It contained images of the 15 glassed human colonies, the burned cities, the mass graves, the children's toys melted into the ground. Where was your condemnation when these were burning? Tay's message said. You want civilized? You should have protected the civilized. Now you get us. The Council did not reply 1 week after the first attacks. The 72-hour deadline passed for the 12 crippled Vren colonies. Humanity had told them to evacuate. The Vren had refused. Now humanity made good on their promise. Dr. Hyan's Gray Swarm was released into the atmosphere of each colony. The nanobots were invisible, smaller than dust, and they were hungry. They began eating. Metal structures dissolved. Plastics broke apart. Electronics crumbled. Buildings collapsed into powder. The Vren colonists ran for their ships, but many ships had already been eaten. They called for rescue, but human ships were blocking all approaches to the planets. They could only watch as their cities melted around them. The colonies were not destroyed quickly, like New Jeju had been. The destruction was slow, deliberate, impossible to stop. It took days. And during those days, the colonists experienced what the humans had experienced. Helplessness, terror, the knowledge that no one was coming to save them. Vren military ships tried to break through the human blockade to rescue survivors. They met Dr. Hyan's other creation, swarm fighters controlled by artificial intelligence, able to react faster than any living pilot, able to coordinate attacks with perfect precision. The Vren ships were torn apart before they could fire a single shot. 1. Vren commander watched his entire battle group die in less than 3 minutes. When his own ship was surrounded and disabled, he broadcast a surrender on all channels. We cannot fight this, he said. This is not war. This is extermination. His words spread through the Vren fleet like a disease. For the first time in their history, Vren warriors began to feel real fear. They had always believed they were the greatest fighters in the galaxy. They had always believed that strength and courage would win any battle, but how could you fight an enemy who had no limits? How could you be brave against someone who would do anything, use any weapon, cross any line? The humans were not fighting a war. They were delivering punishment, and there was nothing the Vren could do to stop them. Admiral Grath tried to rally his forces. They are still weak, he insisted. They are still humans. We will crush them. But even his own officers were starting to doubt. Reports came in every day about new human weapons, new human tactics, new human horrors. Ships eaten by invisible robots. Soldiers driven mad by endless attacks. Planets slowly dissolving into dust. Perhaps, one of Grath's advisors said carefully, we should consider negotiation. Grath struck him across the face. Vren do not negotiate with prey. Then we will die, the advisor replied, blood running from his mouth. Because these humans are not prey. They are predators. And they are hunting us. Back on Earth, Fleet Commander Jin reviewed the reports from the front lines. The campaign was working. Vren morale was collapsing. Their economy was failing. Their military was stretched thin trying to defend everywhere at once, but Jin was not celebrating. She sat in her office late at night looking at the casualty reports. Vren casualties. Civilian casualties. Children who had nothing to do with the attack on human colonies, dying because of what their government had done. Are we becoming them? She asked Admiral Tay during one of their briefings. Tay looked at her with his cold, empty eyes. They had a choice. They could have stopped their government. They could have refused to serve in their military. They could have spoken against the genocide. They did nothing. Now they pay the price? And when does it end? Tay stood up and walked to the window. It ends when they surrender completely. It ends when their leaders face justice. It ends when the galaxy understands that killing humans has consequences. He paused. It ends when I stop hearing my daughter's voice every time I close my eyes. Jin watched him leave and wondered if that day would ever come. Or if humanity would keep fighting until there was nothing left? Not just nothing left of the Vren, nothing left of themselves, but those were thoughts for another day. Right now they had a war to win. And they were winning. The galaxy watched in horror and fascination as humanity unleashed its old ways upon the Vren Empire. Many species were afraid. Some were impressed. A few, who had suffered under Vren aggression themselves, were quietly satisfied, and all of them learned the same lesson. Humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The civilized rules had been a cage. Now the cage was open and the monster was free. 3 months into the war, the Vren Empire was dying. Half of their colony worlds had been evacuated. Their economy had collapsed. Their military was broken, scattered across hundreds of systems trying to defend against attacks that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Vren citizens lived in constant fear, waiting for the next human strike, the next horror on Earth. Some people celebrated. The monsters who had burned their children were finally suffering. Justice was finally being served. But others were not so sure. They looked at what humanity was doing and felt something cold in their stomachs. Ambassador Yoon was one of these people. She was a diplomat who had spent 20 years working in the Galactic Council, trying to build relationships between humanity and other species. She had lost no family on the colonies. She had watched the war from a distance, and what she saw troubled her deeply. She requested a meeting with Admiral Tay. He kept her waiting for 2 hours before letting her into his office. Ambassador, he said without looking up from his reports. What do you want? Yoon sat down across from him. I want to talk about what we are becoming. Now Tay looked at her. His eyes were still empty, but there was something dangerous in them. We are winning. We are committing atrocities. We are destroying civilian populations. We are using weapons banned by every civilized species. We are becoming the monsters we claim to fight. Tay leaned back in his chair. The Vren destroyed 15 of our worlds. They killed 89 million of our people. Tell me, Ambassador, what is the civilized response to that? Not this, Yoon said. There has to be a line. There has to be something we will not do. There was a line, Tay replied. The Vren crossed it when they bombed New Jeju. Now there are no lines. There's only winning and losing, and I refuse to lose. Yoon left the meeting feeling sick. She was not the only one. Captain Wu had been running harassment operations for 3 months. His crews had not rested for more than a few hours at a time. They had attacked hundreds of targets, destroyed countless ships, killed thousands of Vren soldiers. They were exhausted, but they kept fighting because they believed in the mission. Then Wu received new orders. His squadron was to attack a Vren refugee convoy. Ships full of civilians fleeing from the war, trying to reach safety on neutral worlds. These are not military targets, Wu said to his first officer. No, sir. But command says the Vren are hiding weapons and supplies in civilian convoys. We are to destroy them all and let intelligence sort out the real targets later. Wu stared at the orders for a long time. He thought about his brother, the teacher who had died protecting children. What would his brother think of these orders? What would his brother think of him? "Sir?" his first officer asked. "Your orders?" Wu took a deep breath. "Plot an intercept course. We follow orders." But as his ships closed on the convoy, Wu felt something break inside him. He was about to kill innocent people, families, children, just like the Vren had killed human families and children. He was becoming exactly what he hated. In the end, he could not do it. He ordered his ships to turn away at the last moment. The convoy escaped. When Fleet Commander Jin learned what had happened, she called Wu back to Earth for questioning. "You disobeyed a direct order," she said. "Yes, sir." "You let the enemy escape." "They were not enemies, sir. They were refugees." Jin studied him for a long moment. "You are relieved of command. Report to ground duty until further notice." Wu saluted and left. He was not sorry. He had crossed many lines in this war, but killing refugee children was a line he could not cross. If that made him a traitor, then so be it, while humanity struggled with what it was becoming. Commander Sora made a discovery that changed everything. Her intelligence teams had been monitoring Galactic Council communications, looking for any sign that the Council might intervene in the war. What they found was much worse. "This cannot be right," Sora said, reading the decrypted messages, but it was right. The messages proved that the Galactic Council had known about the Vren's planned attack on humanity before it happened. Not only had they known, they had allowed it to happen. Several council members had even encouraged it. "The humans need to be humbled," one message said. "They are too aggressive, too ambitious. Let the Vren teach them their place in the galaxy." Another message, "Acceptable losses. Better to reduce human population now than deal with them later when they are stronger." Sora felt rage burning in her chest as she read message after message. The Council had not failed to protect humanity. They had deliberately chosen to let humanity die. She brought the evidence to Admiralty and Fleet Commander Jin. The room was silent for a long time after they finished reading. "They killed us," Jin finally said. "Not the Vren, the Council. They used the Vren as their weapon." "Then the Council is our enemy too," Tay said. Dr. Hyan was called in to hack every communication system in Council space. Within 24 hours, the evidence was broadcast to every species in the galaxy. Every world, every ship, every station received the proof that the Galactic Council had sanctioned genocide. The reaction was immediate. 3 species who had also been victimized by Council approved. Aggression announced they were leaving the Council and offering humanity their support. A dozen other species declared neutrality, refusing to help the Council in any action against Earth. The Council's coalition fleet, which had been preparing to stop humanity's war, suddenly found itself divided. Half of the ships refused to fight. The other half began arguing among themselves about what to do. The Council was falling apart. And humanity was not finished. Admiral Tay gathered the human fleet and moved toward the Vren homeworld. 200 warships, carrying enough weapons to destroy a planet 10 times over. They arrived in orbit and took position around the world. Their guns pointed at the cities below. The Vren had no ships left to stop them. Their defenses were broken. They could only wait and watch as human weapons aimed at their families, their homes, their children. Tay broadcast a message to the planet. The Vren Empire will stand trial. Every commander who ordered civilian deaths, every captain who executed them, every politician who planned them, you have 1 day to surrender these criminals. If you refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment. He paused, letting the words sink in. You wanted to glass our worlds. We learned from your example. The question is, did you learn from ours? On the planet below, panic spread through the population. Citizens demanded that their government surrender. Military officers turned on their commanders. Vren, who had supported the war against humanity, were dragged from their homes by their own neighbors and delivered to human ships, but Admiral Grath refused to surrender. He barricaded himself in his command center with his loyal guards, determined to die fighting. "Vren do not surrender," he announced. "Vren do not bow to prey." Commander Sora received permission to handle the situation. Her team infiltrated Grath's command center within 3 hours. They killed his guards, captured him alive, and delivered him to Admiral Tay's flagship. Grath was brought to the bridge in chains. He stood tall, refusing to show fear, even surrounded by the humans he had tried to exterminate. "You think you have won?" Grath said to Tay. "You have won nothing. You have only shown the galaxy what you truly are: savages, barbarians, monsters." Tay walked closer to the Vren admiral. "I had a daughter," he said quietly. "Her name was Yuna. She was 16 years old. She liked to grow flowers. She called for me while your bombs were falling. She asked why no one was coming to help." He pulled out his personal device and played Yuna's final message. The screaming, the explosions, the girl's terrified voice asking for her father. When the message ended, Tay looked into Grath's eyes. "You created this monster. You killed my family and called it strength. You burned my people and called us weak. Now look at what you have done. Look at what you have made us." For the first time, Grath felt true fear. Not of death. Vren did not fear death. But he feared something in Tay's eyes. An emptiness. A darkness that would never be filled. He realized that he had not destroyed humanity. He had freed them. And now the galaxy would never be safe again. "What are you going to do with me?" Grath asked. Tay turned away. "You will stand trial. You will face justice. And then you will be executed, slowly, so everyone remembers what happens when you hurt our children." He nodded to Commander Sora. "Take him away." As Grath was dragged from the bridge, he passed by a viewport showing his homeworld below. His people, his civilization, all of it at the mercy of humans. "This is not over," he shouted. "This will never be over." But he was wrong. It was almost over. And humanity had already won. The question now was whether they could live with what they had become to achieve that victory, or whether the abyss they had stared into had stared back too long. 6 months after the burning of New Jeju, the Vren Empire surrendered completely. There were no negotiations. No compromises? The Vren simply stopped fighting and accepted whatever terms humanity demanded. They had no choice. Their military was destroyed. Their economy was gone. Their population was terrified. Every day they continued to resist. More of their people died. The surrender ceremony took place on Earth, in the same building where Fleet Commander Jin had declared the end of civilized rules. Vren leaders signed documents admitting their guilt and accepting human authority over their remaining military forces. Admiral Grath was not present. He was already in a prison cell, waiting for his trial. When the ceremony was over, Jin stood at the window and watched the Vren delegates leave. She felt no satisfaction. Only exhaustion. "Is it done?" Ambassador Yoon asked, walking up beside her. "The surrender is done," Jin replied. "The war is not. There is still the matter of justice." The trials began 1 week later. They were held in public, broadcast across the entire galaxy, so that every species could see what happened when you attacked human civilians. The evidence was overwhelming. Military records, communications, video footage. There was no question of guilt. 1,847 Vren military and political leaders were charged with crimes against humanity. Captains who had ordered orbital strikes on cities. Generals who had planned the attacks. Politicians who had approved them. All of them were brought before human judges and forced to answer for what they had done. Captain Wu served as one of the prosecutors. He had been relieved of his command for refusing to attack the refugee convoy, but Jin had offered him a new role, making sure that justice was served properly. Wu accepted. It felt right. He had crossed too many lines during the war. Now he could help draw new lines that should never be crossed. "You ordered the attack on Colony 7, Wu said to one Vren commander during questioning. 400,000 civilians died, including a school with 3,000 children. What do you say to that?" The commander looked at him with hatred. They were humans. They were the enemy. They were children, Wu replied. They were not the enemy. They were not soldiers. They were just children. The commander had no answer to that. One by one, the guilty were convicted. Sentences ranged from life imprisonment to execution. Admiral Grath was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to death. His execution was broadcast live. Humanity wanted the galaxy to see that killing their children had consequences. Some species thought humanity was being too harsh. Others thought they were not being harsh enough. But no one could argue with the results. For the first time in galactic history, leaders were being held accountable for attacking civilians. The rules had always existed, but no one had ever enforced them before. Now humanity was enforcing them. And everyone was paying attention. The Galactic Council tried to survive the scandal that Sora's intelligence had revealed. They claimed the messages were fake. They claimed humanity had manipulated the evidence. But no one believed them. Too many species had their own reasons to distrust the Council. Too many had suffered from approved aggression that the Council had allowed. Within 3 months, the Council dissolved. It simply fell apart as species withdrew their membership and refused to participate. The Great Hall where Jin had declared war sat empty, gathering dust. In its place, a new coalition formed. Humanity worked with the 3 species who had supported them during the war, and together they created a new system of galactic government. It was built on one simple principle. Any attack on civilians would trigger immediate collective response. No exceptions. No discussions. No one would ever be able to glass a colony world and then hide. Behind diplomacy again, Earth became the coalition's enforcement arm. When other species broke the rules, when diplomacy failed, humanity would respond. They were the ones who had proven they would cross any line to protect innocent people. They were the ones the galaxy feared. Admiral Tay was offered command of this new force. He accepted without hesitation. Someone has to be willing to do terrible things to protect the innocent, he said at his appointment ceremony. Someone has to carry that burden. We have proven we can do it. We will continue to do it. The words were broadcast across the galaxy. Some species felt reassured. Others felt a chill down their spines. Humanity had gone from being seen as weak newcomers to being seen as the most dangerous species in known space. It was not clear which reputation was more accurate. As the months passed, humanity began to heal. Colonies were rebuilt. Families mourned their dead. Life slowly returned to normal. But nothing was really normal anymore. Humanity had changed. They had looked into the darkest parts of themselves and used what they found there. That knowledge would never go away. Captain Wu finished his work as prosecutor and resigned from military service entirely. He could not continue serving after everything he had seen, everything he had done. Instead, he began working with Ren refugees who were trying to build new lives away from their ruined empire. It felt like a way to make up for the lines he had crossed. "You fought against us," one Vren asked him. "You destroyed our worlds. Why are you helping us now?" Wu thought about the question for a long time. "Because we were both wrong," he finally said. "Your people were wrong to attack our colonies. My people were wrong to respond with total destruction. Someone has to break the cycle. Someone has to choose something different." The Vren did not understand. But Wu kept helping anyway. Commander Sora continued leading special operations for the new coalition. But she established strict rules of engagement for her teams. No attacks on civilians. No psychological torture. No weapons of mass destruction. The war had been won. Now they needed to make sure they did not become permanent monsters. "We showed the galaxy what we are capable of," she told her soldiers. "Now we show them what we choose to be." Those are 2 different things. Ambassador Yoon led the diplomatic efforts to build the new coalition. She worked every day to make sure the horrors of the war would never be repeated. New treaties, new protections, new systems of accountability. It was slow work, but it was important work. Dr. Hyon returned to his laboratory and destroyed most of the weapons he had created during the war. the Grey Swarm, the AI fighters, the biological agents. He kept only documentation as a reminder of what humanity could do if pushed too far. But he made sure no one could ever use those weapons again. We needed them, he told his assistant Rena, but we should never have had to use them. And we should make sure we never have to use them again. Admiral Tay served as the Coalition's enforcer for 1 year. He led missions against pirates, slavers, and rogue governments. He protected innocent people across the galaxy. He was very good at his job. Then, on the 1-year anniversary of New Jeju's destruction, he retired. He took a shuttle to the memorial world that New Jeju had become. The entire planet was now a monument to the dead. Names carved into black stone. Gardens growing where cities had once stood. Quiet places for quiet grief. Tay walked to the monument for his family, Hannah, Yuna, their names carved into stone, along with millions of others. He stood there for a long time, not speaking, just looking at the names. Finally, he removed his admiral's insignia and placed it at the base of the monument. Then he pulled out a small piece of paper and left it beside the insignia. The paper contained a message. You asked why no help came. I made sure it will never happen again. I hope that is enough. I hope you can forgive me for what I became. I love you both, always. Tay turned and walked away. He did not look back. There was nothing left to say. The galaxy settled into a new peace. Not a perfect peace. There were still conflicts, still problems, still species who broke the rules. But whenever someone threatened civilians, the Coalition responded. And behind the Coalition stood humanity, watching, waiting, ready to do whatever was necessary. Their species learned to be careful around humans. They were polite. They were respectful. They did not make jokes about human weakness anymore, because they had seen what happened when humans were pushed too far. They had seen the old ways, and they never wanted to see them again. A generation passed. On a Vren colony world, a young girl asked her teacher why they had to learn about the war with humanity. Why did it matter? It was ancient history. The teacher was an old Vren who had survived the human campaign. She had seen her city dissolve around her. She had heard the screams from New Jeju broadcast on every channel. She had nightmares about those days even now. She looked at her student and thought carefully about how to answer. We learn about it so we remember, she said. We remember what happens when civilization fails its purpose. We remember what happens when rules exist but no one enforces them. We remember what happens when strong nations attack weak ones and expect no consequences. The girl frowned. But the humans were not weak. They won? No, they were not weak, the teacher agreed. That is the most important lesson. They seemed weak because they followed the rules. They seemed weak because they chose to be civilized. But that was a choice. When we forced them to make a different choice, we learned what they really were. What were they? The teacher was quiet for a moment, remembering the darkness of those days. They were sleeping giants, she said. And we made the mistake of waking them up. The galaxy will never forget that mistake. And neither should you. The girl nodded slowly, trying to understand. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, humans went about their daily lives. They worked and played and loved and grieved just like any other species. They did not think of themselves as monsters. They did not think of themselves as giants. They were just people. People who had learned a terrible truth about themselves and the galaxy, civilized. Rules only worked when everyone followed them. And when someone broke those rules, when someone hurt innocent people, there had to be consequences. There had to be someone willing to deliver those consequences. Someone willing to cross every line, break every limit, become whatever was necessary to protect the innocent. Humanity had become that someone. They had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. They carried that darkness with them now. It was part of who they were, but they also carried something else. Hope. The hope that they would never have to use that darkness again. The hope that the galaxy had learned its lesson. The hope that civilization would actually mean something this time, and if that hope failed, if someone else decided to burn human worlds and kill human children, then humanity would be ready. The civilized rules were back. But humanity remembered what waited underneath them. And so did everyone else. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth had made sure of that. Now they would all have to live with what that lesson had cost. Some prices were too high to ever forget.